What's going on, pursuers? Welcome to The Pursuit of Calling, the podcast that provides you with the strategies and tools needed to successfully discover and pursue your calling. Whether it's through inspiring stories, thought-provoking interviews, or quick, insightful episodes on personal growth and development, we've got you covered. I'm your host, Thomas Carney. Enjoy the episode. All right. Hey, Yolanda, how's it going?
Hi, Thomas. Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for your yes. Thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast.
You're so welcome. It's my honor to be here with you.
For those who don't know, I met Yolanda at IMC, which I've brought up multiple times and have had other guests on that I met there as well. And Yolanda, we got to talking. The reason I got the chance to ask her onto the show was because it was a seemingly random conversation where I went just to say hi. I went to say hi to a guy that I was at my table, and she was there having a conversation with them as well, and it ended up being hour and a half, 2 hour. It was a long conversation just about what our goals are, why we're doing what we're doing. Yolanda is with Maxwell is going down the speaking track. And I'm I go through the coaching. I have my the free coaching sessions that you can sign up for down in the show notes. And but yeah, we got to talking, and I remember thinking as Yolanda was talking to Adam and I was like, man, it makes sense that she's a speaker. It makes sense that that's the track that she went down, because she captivated our attention, and without even meaning to, she had almost demanded it. So I want you guys to just kind of get ready for that, because she has a lot to say, but she also has a lot of good things to say. Yeah. But yeah, Yolanda, for those who don't know you, because many people that are listening won't, who is Yolanda?
Well, my name is Yolanda Ayala. I live in Los Angeles, California. I'm a nurse. I work at UCLA, and I've been at UCLA since 2003. And that has been my childhood dream, is to become a nurse. So when I was 8 years old, where the seed was planted was when I was 8 years old, I was on vacation with my family, and I was hit by a car. And fast forward of being in the hospital for over 2 months, that's where it was ingrained in my brain of becoming a nurse because of what happened to me. And I would see the nurses, and I remember clearly I was being advocate for the other patients. I was the most critical kid in that unit, yet I was the outspoken one. And there was this one nurse that I was just not a fond of, and I'm like, I want to make a difference. Fast forward to becoming a nurse, moving from a small town, El Centro, leaving my family to pursue my dream and moving to Los Angeles and becoming a nurse. And it was hard work, but I was so determined to be the nurse because I would always see myself. And I became a certified nursing assistant, which is right before becoming a nurse. But I would see myself, Yolanda Ayala RN. I graduated from Glendale Community College in 2003 and pursued to go to UCLA. And that was my childhood dream, to work in a teaching hospital. And within the same time, I also worked in a community hospital. So I was doing 2 jobs at the same time. And in that pursuit, after 10 years, is where I saw myself, I felt myself, and asking myself, what's next? I had worked so hard from 8 years old all the way into 10 years of my nursing career. And this is, like in 2015, 2016, that I kept on asking myself, what's next?
Mhm.
And I felt like a little hamster just going 100 miles an hour, not going anywhere, is where I saw myself at the time. And seeing myself of this is all I wanted to do in life. Like what happened to me?
Mm.
What happened? The guilt kick in, the am I being selfish? What else do I want? And it's of living my childhood dream and finding myself becoming unfulfilled and asking myself those questions of what is next
Mm.
is where those emotions kind of kicked in of not being enough, feeling lost,
Mm.
unfulfilled. So after 10 years, going into 13 years of being a nurse, I saw myself, I don't know what else to do. And it was up until in 2018, I went to my first skincare conference. And that was the door of business.
Mm.
And at the time, even though it didn't make sense because I've been a nurse my whole life, yet in 2018 of walking into this conference where I saw Mel Robbins, who is a personal growth coach, motivational speaker, and everything she said just made me feel alive.
Mm.
And I asked myself, how did I go from reaching the highest mountain of my childhood dream to become a nurse to and falling into depression to want to commit suicide and not wanting to live to suddenly I felt alive.
Mm.
And what is business and nursing? They have nothing to do with each other within the time. And it's within that journey that more doors started to open
Mhm.
onto, becoming a business person. So that's pretty much where my journey started from being a nurse onto business.
Wow. And just so people know, like, how's that pursuit going right now with your with business?
So in 2018, where that first door opened of,
Mm.
is this what I want to do?
Mm.
And at the time, my only skills at the time where was being a mom, a nurse, a wife, and that's it. So to do business, I had none of those skills,
Mhm.
like none whatsoever. But I was determined. I was determined exactly the same concept of wanting to be a nurse,
Mhm.
my grit, determination. Where do I see myself? I don't have the skills, but how can I become?
Mm.
And it's within that time, 2018, it was like 2 years right before the pandemic hit. So pandemic happened and I was still kind of like just going in that spiral of like, what else do I want to do? In the back of my mind, starting that idea of my first business.
Mm.
And my friend asked me when we were on lockdown through the most difficult time, she's like, Yolanda, who are you? I didn't know how to answer.
Mm.
And I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, who are you? I'm like, is this a truth or dare question? Like, I had no idea how to answer. And it's through personal growth that I had learned where she was asking me what was my identity.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to answer.
Mm.
And seeing myself of who am I and who do I want to become? So I continue pursuing skincare business even though I didn't have any experience
Mhm.
at all. And I continue just learning and growing and just looking back to how I felt the first time I walked into that conference.
Mm.
And I pursued, reading books, watching YouTube videos, podcasts, audiobooks, and just learning. And in 2018 was when I was introduced also to John C. Maxwell
Hmm.
and also everything that he said. I just enjoyed and I saw myself and my spirit just grow. And that's one thing that I kept on asking myself, who do I want to become? And it's through that
Mhm.
difficult times of 2020 during the pandemic that I was driving to the desert, Palm Springs area in California, and seeing myself like, what else do I want to do?
Mhm.
What else do I want to see in life? And I kept on asking myself, what is my identity?
Mhm.
Who am I and who do I want to become? And that's where the second business came in mind, or the ideas of, oh, I can be a private nurse and travel.
Hmm.
So that was business number two. So now it's like 5 years pursuing that. And within that time frame of traveling, I was like, well, can I buy an Airbnb? Can I buy a home instead of spending so much time or so much money at hotels? And that's where the third business idea came in of becoming an Airbnb owner. And that happened. So that was business number three.
Mhm.
And throughout my years of seeing my growth,
Yeah.
more ideas
Mhm.
kept on popping up and going back to like, what is my identity and who do I want to become and how do I feel?
Hmm. So, sorry if you said it already, but whenever you say what is your identity, what would you say it is now?
Now I would say the best version of myself
Hmm.
is what I ask myself because I go back to what I'm doing right now, skincare online, private duty nurse,
Mhm.
Airbnb, and now in the pursuit to become a public speaker
Mhm.
and everything else that falls under a public speaker, which is so many different things, as you know, and coaching is one of them.
Yeah.
And I ask myself, what do I enjoy doing?
Mhm.
And what is my pursuit?
Mhm.
How do I want to feel? And where do I see myself in a year from now?
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's the question is that I keep asking myself, how am I feeling now, day to day, on what is it that I'm doing? And everything that I'm doing, I feel like I'm that 8 year old girl or that little 5 year old girl
Mhm.
living her dream
Mm.
because of how I feel.
Yeah.
Like with
No,
nursing,
that's
what
really
I've
good.
noticed the last year when I became a nurse is I'm so proud. I am so proud to say Yolanda Ayala RN.
Mhm.
But in the pursuit of building three businesses and going on to public speaking,
Mhm.
when I think about or I'm in a situation like I was at the IMC on stage for the first time, that difference is completely different than as a nurse when I go to work. Being proud to knowing my calling of standing there and seeing myself and how I feel. I feel so alive from the inside,
Mhm.
is what I've noticed the difference of the pursuit of the 8 year old girl that was in a car accident, the seed planted to become a nurse and proud versus now be a public speaker. What are my strengths?
Mhm.
And encourage people that life, we can build ourselves to that life that we truly want.
Mhm. Hmm. I like that. You like building the life that we truly want. And so you went along the path of, well, figuring out your identity, figuring out what you really wanted to be doing in your life, and doing what you needed to do to pursue that. So the I have some questions written down, but I think we're kind of off of those at this point. But the question that I'm kind of thinking of right now, like whenever you were going through and discovering that these were the things that you wanted to do, what kind of obstacles did you hit along the way?
Through, I would say, since I was 8 years old, of becoming a nurse, that obstacle was just huge because going to nursing school was something that I never thought it was possible
Mm-hmm.
because of my parents. My parents didn't really, more my mom didn't really believe in going to school. She didn't really believe, and at the time, she's like, Yolanda, you need to get married, very tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to battle with, but this is what I want. So I had to move out from the small town to Los Angeles to pursue. And during the process of becoming a nurse, I struggle with myself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is this really what I want to do? Even though internally I knew what I wanted to do, but school was not my strength and there was no other way out. So studying was very hard for me. Staying focused was very hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I did have my belief that I knew I can accomplish it,
Mm-hmm.
but just going to school was hard. And at the time, my son was only 4 months old.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go to school full time. I still had to work, and my son was only 4 months old. But what I ended up doing is I was so laser focused and I was determined.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always put my son first, nursing school. And I just focused on that. And it didn't give me any room for those obstacles. I pretty much just kind of like was laser focused and I just ran through them no matter what. I didn't give myself that chance to spiral down to, is this really for me? This is hard. I can't do it. I never told myself I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I was so focused on this is what I'm going to do. And my big why was my son. My huge why was my son. And also that vision that I would see myself as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I had many obstacles along the way, I never saw it as an obstacle.
I got.
It was more like I was determined
Mm-hmm.
when I became a nurse. Business is completely the opposite. In business, what I was chasing was I wanted to feel alive.
Mm-hmm.
With the skincare online network marketing, I joined, which is a network marketing. So I pretty much just joined online and it was fun and it was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's through the personal growth that I learned, oh, there's a lot more out there for me to do. And that was pretty much obstacle after obstacle of not having the skills, not knowing like the end part of it. It wasn't structure like nursing school. Nursing school was very structured,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what you did and you just did it. Network marketing completely different. Pursuit to being a private duty nurse completely different. So there were many obstacles, meaning with myself,
Mm-hmm.
am I capable
Yeah.
to do this? I don't have the skills. And I kept on telling myself, I can't do this. I don't have the skills. Who do I think I am? To switching my mindset of what do you want? What do you want to do? What life do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see yourself? And what skills do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, from being a mom, a nurse, that was my only identity,
Yeah.
to you want to build businesses,
Mm-hmm.
you want to build that life. And how do you want to feel
Mm-hmm.
in the pursuit of that? How do you want to feel? And that's where I went back to unpacking myself and learning about trauma, learning about my emotions, learning about myself. learning about myself, my true gift, my true potentials,
Mhm.
my strength. And I've learned to pretty much work on that versus my weakness, is what I noticed. Because when I was spending too much time on things that I wasn't good at,
Mhm.
I wasn't moving forward.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, I'm very positive. I have that desire to want to do this. I want to feel alive. So those emotions came internally.
Mhm.
How do I want to feel? And that was is what's been helping me to overcome all the obstacles.
Mhm.
Like John C. Maxwell says, when you put a bucket of crabs and you don't have to put a lid over it, one crab will be pulling the other one. And that's how I feel in business. In business is you will be get pulled down. You will be dealing with self-doubt. And it's through building yourself, building that knowledge that you know better and then you do better,
Mhm.
is what I notice now with so many obstacles that I see. You start building yourself
Mhm.
to where do you want to go.
Mhm. Yeah. I think there's the one thing that you said I liked a lot. You said like you were working on your strengths versus working on your weaknesses because when you worked on your weaknesses, you didn't really move forward at all. And in my mind, the reason that is whenever we focus on our weaknesses versus our strengths, is because if we're not working on our strengths, our strengths start to weaken. If we're not, and
Mm,
then but even if our weaknesses are getting better, our strengths are weakening, and they kind of end up might if you and it might end up in the same spot, and depending on how long you're on that route, and if you work on your strengths and this is why people have teams, because people will work on teams in order to people work on teams because not everybody has the same strengths. So some people like, you need to make sure there's the person that can fill in the gap for you if you need that gap to be filled. If you're For me, I will eventually be looking for somebody to help me with my social media because I'm not great at it. That's a gap. That's not a
mhm,
strength of
mhm.
mine. And that's something that I've been wanting to do to grow my business. That's something as a from a more of a practical mindset. Um, and something from during our pre-interview, you mentioned and you touched on a little bit. You said you were getting like from IMC. You say you were getting energy. I think I wrote it down as getting energy from the inside out when speaking and doing things like IMC. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yes. So that moment being at IMC, along my journey of from nurse, feeling so depressed and so sad and want to commit suicide, to feeling alive
Hmm.
in doing business. Since 2018 up until now, what I've noticed is when I do more of becoming a public speaker, when
Hmm.
I put myself in an environment of personal growth, conferences,
Hmm.
I just feel this energy. Like my first time going to IMC, I was going down the escalator. And for me, at that time, I had already gone to two other conferences previously. So I was thinking, like, oh, it's just going to be another personal growth conference. Yet I didn't know the feeling of going down the escalator and feeling that woof of energy.
Hmm.
And I was like, what is that? And it went back to 2018.
Hmm.
That moment of being in that empty room and the blue lights and that little gut feeling inside of me, like, what is this? And I just felt so alive.
Hmm.
And being at the IMC going down the escalator, And from the inside of, this is so peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I belong. Even though I didn't know what it was. And fast forward to the following year, which, I met you in March, and being on stage. I had just talked to Mark and I just shared a glimpse of my story of from nurse, feeling sad, depressed, to finding hope.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have learned with hope is like you have hope for that light in the darkness. However, you need to take actions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did in the dark moment of not knowing what was next. In that moment of, but I have everything. Why do I feel so empty?
Mm-hmm.
In that moment of, there is hope. But what did I have to do? There was a glimpse of light. And even though that dark moment is super dark, but just holding on to that little glimpse of light of hope and taking actions. So sharing my story with Mark of, this is what's happening, this is what happened to me, this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going.
Mm.
And for him to take my story and to share it in the audience and me walking on stage, that was my first time. This was just in March, a few months ago.
Yeah.
That was my first time being on stage.
Mm.
And that feeling on stage of, you belong here. And from the
Mm-hmm.
inside, that little gut feeling, my spirit, my heart, my higher divine for me is God of,
Yeah.
you are on your path.
Yeah.
And being so in tune on how I was feeling is the key. When you know you're
Mm-hmm.
in the pursuit of your calling and in the pursuit of what you want to do for the rest of your life, because your spirit is internally. And what I have noticed is those moments when I'm there and it gets hard on growing to become a public speaker, I think of that moment.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think of that moment. In those little moments that we put ourselves, we start taking action, you start building yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That when you have those obstacles of, you can't do this, who do you think you are? You push through.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it's internal, it's in your heart. Nobody can take that away.
Mm-hmm.
It's inside of you. And you have that little gut feeling of, this is right for me, no matter what other people say. Because your dream is your dream.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if other people tell you, like, who do you think you are? You're crazy. Like for me, you're crazy. You already make a lot of money. Why would you want to do something that you've never done? You don't even have the skills. But then those moments, I go back to, how do I feel inside?
Mm-hmm.
It makes me very happy,
Yeah.
like a true, true happiness. And I get like this natural energy. Like I can be working 12 hours and somebody can tell me, like, hey, Yolanda, what does it mean to be brave? I just sit up and I come to life and I
Mm.
feel it.
Yeah.
I feel that desire inside of me.
Wow. I think applying that to the listeners right now, they're thinking about the things that they find, like, think whenever. Let me just speak to the listeners for a second.
Mhm,
Like
mhm,
those, the things that she was just talking about, guys. She was just talking about like a moment in her life where she felt that calling. She felt that like this was right. This is what it was. This is what I'm meant to be doing, or this is the um, path I'm supposed to take. I'm curious to know. I'm curious, and you can put it in the comments. You can message me, or you can write it down yourself, and just write down what was the moment in your life where it just felt right. It just felt like that's something that you either felt like God has been calling you towards. Maybe it's something that you just feel is um, you don't really know how to explain it. It's just like I whenever I was talking with this friend, whenever I was able to um, whenever I was able to serve in this particular way, or maybe it's whenever you are at your job, maybe that feels right every day. Like it'd be curious for you to um, take the time and think about those moments in your life where that garnered excitement inside of you, and then thinking about how you can get that excitement and garner that as frequently as possible. Just like she was saying, she's like she was going through any obstacle. It's easier said than done, but any obstacle you can get through it. Any obstacle that you've had in your past is now in your past. You've gone through those. So thinking about all those times when you were excited, all those times when you felt like I feel like this is what I'm meant to be doing. Um, it'd be awesome if you wrote that down, and then write down what you can do this next week in order to pursue your calling well. Um, Yolanda, I don't have much more questions to ask. I Go ahead.
Yeah. So to see, yeah. So you telling your listeners, like,
Yeah.
write it down. Like, for example, with me at UCLA, when I go to work, I enjoy it.
Hmm.
I still enjoy that. However, when I'm on stage or like right now doing a podcast,
Right.
it's completely different.
Hmm.
I get excited about going to work and I enjoy it and I don't hate it. I still love it. It's a passion, but my calling, I just feel like I come to life.
Mm.
When we start talking about personal growth, personal development, because I truly believe that's key. If you start building yourself,
Hmm.
meaning peeling those layers, removing all those labels, growing up that people put those labels on you,
Hmm.
that's really not who you are.
Hmm.
Only keep the labels that you know in your heart. That's who you are.
Mm.
And what I'm noticing right now with myself is that I believe that it is my calling.
Hmm.
Because the more I learn, the more I grow, the more I see myself going forward,
Hmm.
no matter how hard it is. And it is going to get hard.
Yeah.
And John C. Maxwell says, a leader never has two good days,
Hmm.
right? So when you start learning and you start applying it, that's where you keep just growing so much. And in life, I truly believe we have to grow. And I believe what happened to me where I went from pursuing my dream, but not my calling, what happened in the gap was I stopped growing.
Mm. Yeah.
Becoming a nurse, a mom, to my true potential, I had climbed that mountain, but I plateau. But what is my calling? It's something way bigger than we can imagine.
Mm. Yeah.
Because I had no idea. However, I think I shared with you that your success leave clues along your timeline, right? So, since when I was a little girl, I would see myself on stage. I would see myself talking, and I would do this as a little girl, and I would just like pretend, and I'd be like, "Oh, my house, and this is what I do, and I travel." But then working as a nurse, I'm like, that's not what I did when I was a little girl.
Mm.
And now what I'm doing, like on stage, on a podcast, being in an environment of personal growth, it goes back to that little girl
Yeah.
feeling so alive. And even though we don't have the answers and you don't know,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. It's how you feel inside when you are doing certain things
Mm.
and you start reaching that high potential.
Hmm.
And no matter how hard it gets and those fears, but once you start learning, you start developing yourself.
Mm.
You
Yep.
start removing those labels that your environment put on you when you were young
Mm.
or a teenager or in high school. I was never a good student.
Mm-hmm.
Never. I never really cared for school at all. And those were all the labels that every single person around me put on me
Mm.
until I realized I need to remove them. They don't serve me anymore. Even my own mom putting those labels because they raise you or they help you with what they know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's our responsibility to really look at ourselves and ask ourselves, am I happy with what I'm doing right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Immediately, you have 2 seconds, yes or
Mm-hmm.
no. And then start looking at what is it that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And where do you see yourself in a year from now? Are
Mm.
the questions I keep asking myself. Where do I see myself in a year from now? And along the way, too, is what are the things that I'm doing that no longer serve me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They no longer serve me, like putting myself down or doubting myself.
Mm-hmm.
Does that serve me? No, it doesn't. What is my full potential?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I see myself?
Mm.
And I want to share with you the books that I find very powerful is
Yeah.
that I started with was Leadership with John C. Maxwell.
Mm.
Also, another book that I just love so much is the 5 a.m. Club.
Okay.
I learned to master that book because I'm like, I want to be the 5 a.m. Club because I started waking up early. I started doing routines, journaling. I started reading, and that kind of went back to what is my identity and who do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be someone that sees the sunrise because it makes me feel alive.
Mm.
I want to be a better writer because I want to be able to write all my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to read a book without feeling tired.
Mm.
Because I remember when I first moved to Los Angeles back in 1997, I had piles of books I never read,
Mm-hmm.
but I had that desire that I wanted to read them. But at the time, I was so busy onto the pursuit to become a nurse. And another time, I remember working as a private nurse, and it was in the middle of the night. And at the time, I had decided I was no longer going to pursue nursing to become a nurse practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
To sitting there, I was watching on YouTube and I was watching John C. Maxwell in a podcast. And I remember the little glimpse of an idea. Can I get paid to learn? It was just a glimpse of an idea
Yeah.
that gets filed in your subconscious. And if it's something very important to you, it doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't go away. And that goes back to internal
Mm.
inside of you. It does not go away because it stays in your subconscious. And we have to learn to, oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
To now, I mean, I have tons of books that I'm always reading,
Mm-hmm.
tons of books. And what I've learned is the different books that I read is, am I building myself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the 5 a.m. Club is one book that I mastered.
Mm.
The Mount by Robin Sharma. The Mountain Is You by Brianna West was huge because at the time when I started reading that book, I felt I was at the highest mountain and I didn't know where else to go.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. So learning about the mountains is what kind of helped me develop myself a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
to who I am, to who I really am.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing those. And you went through my ending questions, or at least one of them, but which is good. Because I was going to ask you about resources. I always ask guests what resources you recommend to others, which you already did, which is awesome. And then the last, I want to wrap it up by asking just one final question. That now that you've been on the Pursuit of Calling podcast, who would you recommend as a guest?
Oh, that's a good one. I would recommend as a guest would be, I think we talked about Adam.
Yeah,
I would want to see Adam as a guest in your podcast, because to see his
yeah,
transformation
mm-hmm,
and to see as a man of his story,
mm-hmm,
his journey, and to see him where he is and
yeah,
what he's battling. Yet I truly believe he is on his way to what is his calling,
yeah,
what is the pursuit of calling. And I think he would be like a great guest. And I would always keep in mind of
mm-hmm,
who else is going through the struggles, and who else is going towards their true potential and their true calling. And going back to the references, and I know, like myself, I never really, even though I had that desire of reading books, I just couldn't. I could not sit down and just read a book, even though I had that desire.
mm-hmm,
So, what I ended up doing at first was YouTube videos. That's
yeah.
where I started.
I gotcha. Yeah.
So, YouTube videos, you can put personal growth, personal development, and just pick that one person.
Mm-hmm.
Just pick that one person. Then from the YouTube videos, I went on to podcasts,
Mm,
listening to podcasts. And people that you listen to will give you clues on what else to listen to.
mm-hmm,
And from there, I went to audiobooks,
mm,
and I discovered that I'm an audio learner. So what I ended up doing is the audiobook, and then I had the physical book. And I started doing both things at the same time,
yep,
listening to the book, reading the book, and taking notes.
mm-hmm,
And mastering, the huge key that I have learned is pick when you're reading through books and you're on this journal of learning and growing,
right,
because that's key
mm-hmm,
to grow. That's our key in life, is master. Pick a few books and master those books
mm,
to become the best version of you, and to start diving more into what is your true calling,
mm-hmm,
and listen to those moments that you feel alive from the inside, and pursue that. And even though experts tell you not to, you continue on that path and that journey. And I truly believe we were all born for greatness. We just have to dive into what we really want.
yeah. That's great. I love I love it. Well, Yolanda, thank you for being on this episode of the Pursuit of Calling podcast. And thank you all for listening to this episode. If you liked it, you can share it, give it a 5-star review, and yeah, guys, keep pursuing your calling well. See you next time.